a technique which I've been recently using to create time-lapse effects of sunsets in real-time video. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's have a quick look at some example footage. So here we have a drone shot flying through, and if you notice from that, we see how the sky and the color temperature changes from the sort of bluey pre-sunset colors to really deep pinks and purples, magentas of a beautiful sunset. If we have a look at another clip, so another drone shot here, and we'll see once again the sky change to that beautiful sunset sky with lots of colors, lots of pinks, oranges. Now this happens obviously over time, so I've got a quick example here of time lapse where the sun sets and we see how it changes from yellow to orange to red and then to the sort of pinky purpley hues. Now that's obviously through a passage of time, roughly about half an hour, 40 minutes. And when we record real-time video, so for example we've got another shot here which is real-time, obviously the color temperature of the sky stays the same. Now what we can use is some tools and a few effects within Adobe Premiere to create this effect of a sunset in real-time video, and it's actually relatively simple. So I'm going to go over how I did it on these two clips here, and then for those of you who want a little bit more in-depth, I'll actually do it again on a third clip and recreate it. So for me, let's start with the first clip here. It's actually a two-stage process, and I have the original clip here on the timeline. This is the original clip, and above it is an adjustment layer. Let's make that a bit smaller. So if we turn the adjustment layers off for the minute and we go onto the original clip, you'll see that I've got two effects applied here, one called RGB Curves Sky and one called RGB Curves Land, and you can probably guess what those two do. So let's go ahead and just turn those off. So this was the original footage straight out the camera, and this was actually shot around sunset, but as you'll see that the colors are nowhere near as vibrant as the graded clip. Now I have kind of gone over the top here just for the purpose of this sort of demonstration, and it might look a little garish, but it really is just to sort of show what I'm doing, and you can obviously tweak it to your own individual tastes. So what I start off by doing is masking the sky, or applying an RGB curves just to the sky. And Premiere Pro since CC has had masks on effects, and you'll see here I've just created a mask here for the sky, and I've applied, what I've done is I've boosted up the reds in the sky, pulled down the blues a little to introduce more sort of yellows, pulled down the greens a little bit, and pulled down the overall luminance of it to bring out more detail. If I just turn those RGB curves off, that was before and that's afterwards. So what I've done there is just apply the mask to the sky, and if for example I was to just clear that mask, that would be the whole clip. Now I don't want to apply it to the whole clip, I want it just to the sky, so I'll just go ahead and undo that. With the mask I've applied just a rough approximation to where it is, and then I feathered that, and then all I've done is just tracked that mask very slightly. You can actually see that the level of the trees doesn't really change much in the clip, but I can just add in a few keyframes to track that, and with a bit of feathering you don't need to spend ages creating a really accurate mask. Now you'll see that I've also got one for the land, and a real quick and easy tip is all we need to do is take the sky one, which has already got the mask on, and obviously with the land we just want the opposite. So we've got the sky as the top half, we want the bottom half. So if we copy the RGB curves and then paste it, and we've now got two effects, which is obviously what we don't want. And if I just twiddle this down, I can then select inverted, and that inverts the mask, and then I can apply my effect just to the land. And that's exactly what I've done. If I just get rid of that one, to this one here. So if I turn that on, I've just applied a different set of curves and I've graded that to give it the look. So I've just brought out a bit of the greens, I've blued up the water, I've increased the red so the reflection of the sky in the water is the same as the land, and then we're good to go. Finally, so if we just scrub through that, keeps the same effect throughout the clip. Now what we need to do is change this over time, and this is where the adjustment layer comes in. So what I've done is I've applied an adjustment layer, and I have then, if we just zoom in to the actual clip, you'll see that there's two adjustment layers here with a cross dissolve, and you might have already figured it out. If we go into the color panel, I've applied on this adjustment layer using the Lumetri color panel, I've pulled the color temperature slider over towards the blue. Just turn that layer on. I have pulled it over to the blue, and then on this adjustment layer I've got another Lumetri and I've pulled that over to the orange side, so the opposite in the color temperature, and with the tint I've boosted up the magentas. So we see the difference between the two. And now obviously we want a smooth graduation between the two, and this is where the cross dissolve comes in, which nicely eases us from the blue clip into the warmer, pinkier clip that we have here. So if we just play through, we see that there. And it's exactly the same on this clip here. So as we pull up, the color temperature is then changing to bring out that sunset. The other thing I've done just to sort of sell the effect is actually on the second adjustment layer is actually brought down the exposure slightly. So I've done that by bringing down the shadows and the black points, so the clip has the effect of getting darker, as you would expect as the sun goes down. Okay, so if you got all that, that's pretty much where I'll leave it. For those who want to see a complete demonstration, what I'll actually show you is how I did it on how I would do it on this clip here. So if we jump back to the effects panel and we take a look at this clip here. So what we're going to do is go ahead and we're going to put an RGB curves effect on. So if I jump in here and put this on here, and then what I'm going to do is, if we just start off here, I'm going to grade it for the sky to begin with. So, and actually what helps me is if I just put a mask on to begin with, because otherwise I'll get distracted by the land, and it just helps me concentrate on what I'm doing. So we'll just work on the sky. So we're going to pull down the exposure, not too much, and if we kick up the reds in the highlights, and then if we pull down the blues, and that's just going to give it a little bit of a yellow tinge, and then same with the greens, a little bit less than that, something like that, for example. Okay, and actually with this one we can probably get away with this square mask if we feather it, because the horizon is almost completely straight. So let's go ahead and feather that mask out, probably about, let's just have a look as we feather it, probably about 200 pixels, something like that. That's not too bad. Let's just have a quick look before and after. Yeah, liking that. So what I'll do now is I'll do a quick track on the mask. So if we go back to the mask, and it's obviously starting off screen, and then if we turn, so I'll turn by clicking the stopwatch here, that turns the mask path on, and it's obviously off screen until we get to about here. So I'll just drag the mask down here, and then to about there to about there. Just zoom out a little bit up to here. All right, let's go back in. And then it stays fairly static, so let's have a look at that. Yeah, that's tracking the horizon pretty well. There's a little bit there, so maybe just move it down there. And then down here as well, just to improve the accuracy. That's looking pretty good. So if I then just rename this Sky, okay, and then if I copy this, paste this, and then invert it, we've now got one nicely masked for the land. But it's not quite how I want it to look, so if we go where we've got a little bit more land, say for example here, I'm going to, going a little bit funky here. So obviously this is all just a taste, and I'm just doing a quick and dirty sort of grade here. I want to take a little bit of the green out. Probably don't want it that dark. Let's go and just bump up the highlight so we get the reflection comes out. And actually I think we need a little bit more, or not that much, no. We don't want an S-curve in it. So we want, there we go, we're bringing out some of the reds, which are obviously sort of more in the mids and the shadows, sort of selling that reflection off there. And actually that's pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with that as an overall grade. Let's have a look. So that was before with the sky and the land. Nice sunset. So if you just wanted a normal sunset shot without any sort of change in color temperature, that would probably do you quite well. So what we'll do now is we'll create a new adjustment layer, and I will drag this across over the top of the clip. And then what I'll do is I'll put so we want to see a bit of the sky probably about here, and then we want it to start changing maybe a little bit further on. So let's put a cut in there. Now what I'll do is I will select the actual clip, jump into the color panel, and then I am going to just tone it down a little bit with the temperature slider to the blue end of the color temperature scale. That's not too bad. I will then select the clip, go copy, select the adjustment layer, right click, select paste attributes. Only want to paste the Lumetri color onto it, click OK. And now I also want to paste it onto this side, so I will right click on the other bit of the adjustment layer, paste attribute, Lumetri color, and click OK. So if I go back to my program window, I want to make sure that on my clip the Lumetri is disabled, and it is only, if I check my effects control, it's only on the adjustment layer. So if I have a look now here, what I want to do on this adjustment layer is change my color sliders to really bring out all that color, so really kind of exaggerate it. And then what we'll do is we'll bring down the shadows and the black point a little bit. Maybe that's a bit too far, something like that. And then we're going to go in the middle, slap on a nice cross dissolve, and I'm going to leave that at the default length, which I think is about a second. And then let's just go ahead and do a quick render into out, which should be pretty quick on this machine. And then if we watch the clip through, and there we go, not too bad at all. So what I might actually do with that is play around potentially where the actual edit point is, maybe bring that in a little bit earlier, so as we tilt up we get the change in color temperature. Okay, so that is how to adjust a sunset in real-time footage and give it that sort of time-lapse effect of the changing color temperatures. Hope that's useful. If you've got any questions or any comments, please leave it in the section below and I'll do my best to get back to you. Okay, thanks very much for watching. Bye-bye.